Hi, Kim Rayner here from All About Spirits Life After Cancer. And when we get a cancer diagnosis, we are thrown curveballs and it impacts every aspect of our lives. And I created this show, Life After Cancer, to help bridge the gap between what you need as a cancer survivor to navigate life and what your medical team is actually able to give you. So I hope that you find something in today's episode that is helpful to you. And today's show is episode 64, and it is called Cancer's Deeper Meaning. And it is part 4 in the series called Embracing Wholeness in the Face of Cancer. And this is based on the book by Dr. David Simon, MD. And in today's show, we're going to talk about the body and its function, and kind of the roles that cells play in the body, and kind of the unspoken message that's given from Western medicine, and maybe some of the challenges with that approach. And then how to start to unravel the quantum field and looking at health through a consciousness-based approach. And then we'll talk about what we're going to talk about next week in next week's show. So the first thing that we'll talk about is, our body is really a miraculous piece of machinery. When it is healthy and it is working the way it's supposed to be working, and in all honesty, even when it's not working the way it's supposed to be working, there are trillions of cells that are actually performing millions of actions, and they do them in an optimal and cooperative sense of order. And each cell really plays a specific role. It has its own job to do, and it performs its job as an individual, but it also performs its job within the ecosystem of the body as a whole. And so, like, if you take the liver cells, for example, one of their jobs is to detoxify blood. Other jobs that it has is to store and release and to metabolize sugar and cholesterol. It also plays a role in the whole system of monitoring hormone levels. And it does its job, on its own, everything that the liver is supposed to do. But it also works in harmony and conjunction with other organs and other cells that are that are its neighbors and that are just within the whole ecosystem of our body. And our body really has this natural intelligence, this innate wisdom, and all healing traditions really recognize that there is something underlying that goes on in the body, and a lot of them refer to it as life force energy. And for the purpose of this discussion, I'll talk about it in the context of life force energy. And what that energy does is it coordinates and it unifies our body's natural intelligence. In traditional Chinese medicine, that innate wisdom, that life force energy, is called qi. And in the ancient practice of acupuncture, acupuncture needles are placed in the body along little energy channels called meridians, and they're used to help remove blockages that stop the flow of qi as it travels through the body. And in Ayurvedic medicine, which is also an ancient healing practice, there is that life force energy is called prana. And prana is the life force energy, or the impulse that actually creates and sustains us. Prana is breath, and it flows through our body as long as life continues. And when your body and its ecosystem stops supporting that flow of life force energy, or that flow of prana, that's when we die. And when we think about life force energy, biochemically, we are exactly the same the moment before we die and the moment after we die. We have the same molecular structure, our cells are the same. The only difference is that that life force energy is no longer present in us. So that life force energy is really what organizes our cells and our molecules and our organs. It's what allows us to work in harmony. And it's also what helps us to be self-aware. And it makes us capable of breathing and thinking, and it's what animates us. It's the difference between who we are and what we are, the moment that we're alive, and then the moment of death. And, science has, Western medicine has not really recognized that life force energy. We really have looked at the world through the material aspect of things, and science is now really starting to recognize that this consciousness has real energy, and that it is a real force to be reckoned with. And there's an unspoken message in Western medicine, and we really look at and understand health by understanding death and illness. When people go to medical school, they study disease, and they study cadavers, they study dying. So in a way, doctors have actually become kind of disease technicians. Their role is to look at us from a disease perspective. And as a result, they end up looking at life as if it's a series of chemical reactions that take place in our bodies, and those chemical reactions are then maybe followed with an awareness and ideas and emotions, but they're not, the ideas, thoughts, and emotions aren't really a driving force in Western medicine. And Western medicine also looks at death as the result of a machine wearing down or breaking down, and its life, its life expectancy or its usefulness kind of wearing out. So the problem with studying medicine from that approach is that it really is kind of an incomplete picture of what goes on in science and in health in general. So when we think about what science knows today, it has literally taught us that matter is not solid, right? The jacket that I'm wearing isn't solid. It appears to be solid, but there's this whole mysterious underworld that goes on that says, wow, the molecules of my jacket are really atomic building blocks, and there's tons of space in between those molecules. Same thing with my skin, right? Your skin, anything that we can touch, anything that's tangible, the chair that I'm sitting in, there's a series of those subatomic particles that make up what appears to be whole. So what science is discovering is that those subatomic particles are really what makes up the non-material world as well. In Ayurvedic medicine, they say that the entire universe is non-material, and it is made of an energy field that holds information. So that perceived matter is really non-matter, and Ayurvedic medicine and actually quantum physics say that matter and energy are actually interchangeable. So they are both saying that the things that make up matter, like my coat, and the things that make up our thoughts are actually in essence of the same material. So when we start to take a look at unraveling the quantum fields and starting to look at our health from that perspective, science is really starting to tweeze that apart. They look at it in the context of meditation, and how meditation can impact outcomes on things. And the energy field is really beyond the limits of time and space. And from out of that energy field from time and space, that's really where time and space is born. They're born out of that energy field. So that non-material world is born out of that same field. So science or quantum physics calls that the unified field. And in this field is is the field of possibility. It is the potential, the resting place for anything that can possibly exist. And in Ayurvedic science, that field is called the field of pure potentiality. And pure consciousness, in that field, that's the space of infinite possibilities. And in my work, I talk about it as if it's the law of pure potentiality. It's that space between, me and the wall in front of me that appears to be empty, but is actually pregnant with the molecules of everything that's possible. Anything that's entertainable in your mind is possible in that field. So when we start to look at our health through that consciousness-based approach, the first step that we really need to take is to acknowledge and consider that this field of intelligence, this pregnant space of pure potentiality, is what creates the world around us. It's the birthplace of everything that exists. And that source of awareness is truly the field of pure potentiality. And in that resting place of pure potentiality is also the resting place of all intelligence. It's the place where all intelligence is born. And in that space rests our ideas, our thoughts, our beliefs, our feelings, our emotions, creativity. All of that stuff rests in the quantum soup of the pure field of potentiality. So if you think about it in that context, that means that our thoughts and our cells and everything else in our environment is really an expression of that field of intelligence in one way, shape, or form. So it's born out of that field of pure potentiality. It stems from that field of pure potentiality. And that means that our physical bodies are also a part of that field of pure potentiality, because they are a field of molecules with lots and lots of space in between. Our mind is a field of ideas. And in the end, that field of consciousness underlies both the field of our intelligence and what goes on in our mind and the field of our physical realities. And in that space, we call that spirit. So when I talk about the name of my company being All About Spirit, that's really a big piece of why it's called All About Spirit. Because at the fundamental core, spirit lies at the heart of everything. And life force energy, that life force that animates us the moment that we're alive and ceases to animate us at the moment of our death, that too is an expression of that field of consciousness. That energy is what animates us. So that same energy in that field of consciousness is what allows our cells to work independently and collectively, and it is what ceases when we die. So when there's something that goes on that interferes with that flow of energy, our cells start to change. They forget that they are a part of a whole system. They start to act as if they're disconnected from the rest of their body. That consciousness model says that this is the starting point of cancer. This is where cancer is born, when our cells disconnect and forget that they're a part of the whole, that they have a role to play. And, ongoing exposure to toxins is something that interferes with the flow of that energy. Emotional trauma is something that interferes with the flow of energy. Physical trauma is something that interferes with the flow of that energy. So there are a lot of things that go on in our existence and in our lives that interfere with the flow of that energy. And if we can find a way to open up that flow, we can have a significant impact on the physical condition of our body. So when our cells stop working in harmony and they stop functioning, they start to reproduce with no regard for the host, that is what cancer is by definition, right? They're like uncontrollable growth of cells, and that causes the organism to self-destruct. So in our next session, we're actually going to revisit that question next week when we talk about what's the deeper meaning of this illness which creates so much suffering in us. And we're going to talk about it. We're going to build on the things that we've talked about in the first 4 sessions. And and we're gonna look at that and say, so what is the deeper meaning of cancer, and how does this all start to fit together? So if you found information in today's show that was helpful for you, I hope that you will like this and share it. And I hope that you will tag other people in it and share the episode so other people can find it. It makes the information available and it makes me visible. So if you like this and if you want to get more information about the shows when they come up, you can go ahead and click the little bell on the bottom to follow All About Spirit on YouTube. And you can like this and share it. And like it and share it on Facebook, share it on other social media platforms that you happen to use. And until we have a chance to talk again next time, I hope that life treats you well. Go out and make it a great week. Thanks for being here.